Good morning. I'm very honored to get to come here this morning and share this story. It's my favorite thing to do because it's not my story. It's God's story. And so thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. I was telling first service that I grew up in the same church for the first 30 years of my life, and then I was in the church I'm in now for the last 14. And so that's all I knew of church. I don't remember a time that I wasn't in church. I don't remember a time that I didn't know Jesus. But this new job affords me to spend Sunday mornings with lots of different churches. And it's just so beautiful to see what's going on Sunday mornings. God's people are coming together in all different ways, in all different locations. And although lots of things are different, so many things are the same. And so thank you for allowing me to worship with you this morning. I do want to tell you about Isaiah 117 House, the ministry, but like I said, I can't do that without telling the story of how I got here. Because anyone that knew me in 2014, if I told them that I would be speaking at a church in Rutherford County this morning on foster care, they would have just laughed and laughed. Because in 2014, I didn't know anything about foster care. I didn't know where the DCS office was located. I didn't know anyone that had walked that journey. I didn't even know what DCS stood for, really. I knew nothing. I was a cheer and dance coach at a local college and an anatomy professor, which is kind of a strange combination. I would work in the cadaver lab, and then I would go pick up pom-poms. But that's what I did. That's how I spent my days. And been married to my husband since 1997, 2 beautiful children, and that was our life. I was homesick from work, and I was watching the Today Show. And one other thing I should point out about me in 2014 is I'd always believed I would adopt. It wasn't just like something I thought that's nice for others, or I'd hear a story and think that's such a beautiful story. I knew that I was supposed to adopt a baby. The only thing that had stood in my way was my husband knew we weren't. We married in 1997, and from 1997 to 2014, I believed we would, and he believed we wouldn't, and so that's where we sat the morning that I was watching the Today Show about National Adoption Day. They announced that as there were families forming on the plaza that morning, they announced that 75% of the children being adopted that day were being adopted out of the foster care system. Now, I knew nothing of foster care, but you can Google anything. So I grabbed my laptop and I Googled foster care, Northeast Tennessee. This was a Monday, and when I Googled that, they said the very first thing you need to do is take PATH classes, and they were starting those classes on that Thursday at a local church. So I like to say I did the only thing a really patient, God-loving woman could do. I called my husband at work and I said, "Want to go on a date Thursday night?" He said, "I'd love to." I said, "Good." And I remember we went out to eat, and when we left, I said, "Want to drive out to Crossroads Christian Church?" And he said, "On our date?" And I said, "Yeah, Rhonda." He drove out there. He didn't ask any more questions. We pulled in the parking lot. There were lots of cars. And he said, "Lots of people dating at the Crossroads Christian Church." There are. It's so odd. We go in and we sit down, and the lady stands up and says, "Welcome to your 8-week study of foster care." 8-week study of foster care? You said we were going on. I was like, whoa, we're on a date for the next 8 Thursdays in a row. This will be so good. He was not happy. I don't know what it says about our marriage, but we left that night and did not speak a word of what had just happened all the way home. The next week, we lived like normal. "Good morning, how are you?" "Great." And then come Thursday, we met in the driveway, and we drove back out to week 2 and didn't speak a word about it. Drove home, didn't speak a word about it. Week 3, we met in the driveway. Drive out to PATH class, nobody saying a word. We were driving home week 3, and Corey broke the silence, and he said, "I don't want to do this." And I said, "Fair enough." I said, "You've been a good sport. We made it 3 weeks. I mean, I tricked you into it. Fair enough." And he said, "Oh, don't fair enough me, Rhonda." And I said, "What?" He said, "You and God have wrecked me. I am a wrecked man." He said, "We have 2 beautiful, healthy children, and our life is simple and safe and predictable, and you know that I love simple and safe and predictable, and I don't want to do this." But now that I've heard the numbers, and now that I know the children in our county alone, I just need a safe place to go. I can't not do this. And so we went back, week 4, week 5, week 6. Week 7, they had us meet in the Department of Children's Services in Washington County. That's in Northeast Tennessee, Johnson City area. And that was my first visit to a DCS office. I've now been in several across the state, and they're all shockingly the same. It's like there's a mold. There's a lobby, and you get buzzed back, and there's a sea of cubicles, and there's some conference rooms. We were sitting in one of those conference rooms, and just to kind of paint a picture for you, there were no windows, there was no natural light, state-issued furniture, tables, chairs, phones that still plugged into walls, conference room. And the gentleman leading the class said, when a child is removed from their home, they come here. And I looked around that room, and I didn't see anything warm or inviting, and I couldn't figure out why you would ever bring a child there. So I thought, surely he's confused. And so I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, sir, but when you say a child comes here, what do you really mean? And he said, a little girl slept in this room last night. And in that moment, my heart physically hurt. My shoulders got real heavy, and they went toward the table, and I couldn't stop crying, and I couldn't not see her. I just kept seeing this little 6, 7, 8-year-old little girl who left the only mama she'd ever known, and although we might not approve, she did. And if she was allowed to bring anything, it was in a black trash bag. And now she's sleeping on the floor of a dingy, dirty conference room. And I couldn't imagine what a lonely feeling that would be. I couldn't imagine how confusing, and I couldn't get over the fact that I bet she thought it was her fault. In that moment, I heard God say, these are my children, what are you going to do? And at this point in the story, I always like to say, there is nothing special about me. I believe with all my heart that God speaks to us all the time. It's different for all of us. It's in different ways. Sometimes it's a nudge. Sometimes it's a feeling in your heart or your stomach or a thought that will not go away. But in that moment, I heard him say, these are my children. What are you going to do? And I, like many of you sitting there who have felt that or heard that or sensed that, I had no idea what a cheer and dance coach, anatomy professor, could possibly do. And so I pushed it out of my mind and I went on. Fast forward to November 5th of 2015. It was 3:30 in the afternoon, and we got a call from a caseworker in Carter County. There was a 9-month-old little boy that needed a home. And I said, ma'am, I'm going to do something very uncharacteristic. And she said, what's that? I said, I'm going to ask my husband if this is okay. And she said, that's a good idea. And so I called Corey at work and I said, tell me you'll love me no matter what. And he said, you wrecked the car again. I was like, no, tell me you'll love me no matter what. And he said, what's going on? I said, we're about to get in the hottest mess we've ever been in. He said, there's a baby. I said, there's a baby. He said, I'm on my way. So we loaded up our 9-year-old son, Mac, and our 12-year-old daughter, Sophie, and we headed down to the back door of the Carter County DCS. And when they opened the door, there was this fair-skinned, fiery redhead, chubbiest 9-month-old I'd ever seen in my life. And the first thing the caseworker said to me was, he desperately needs a bath. We don't have a way to give them a bath here, and he desperately needs a bath. And then she explained that the outfit that he was wearing was actually not his. They had just tried to find something in the office because his outfit was so filthy they had to throw it away. And then they handed me his one possession, it was a diaper bag, and I was instructed not to bring it in my home for the next 12 to 24 hours so that the roaches could crawl out. But he smiled and he reached for me, and his name is Isaiah. And so we took Isaiah home. And I tell people all the time, if you have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old and a newborn, you need Jesus. And so we started reading the Bible, not for the first time, but we were reading through the Bible. And we made it to Isaiah 1:17, and part of that verse says, defend the cause of the fatherless. And because you can't ever just take a verse because it fits what you want in that moment, or it would be a nice hashtag, or, you have to look at the whole section. You have to look at what was the context. Who is this intended for? What are the verses that come before? What are the verses that come after? And so if you look at the context of Isaiah 1:17, God is speaking to his people, and he's actually quite frustrated. Because if you read what comes before Isaiah 1:17, he says, you think I want these new moon festivals? You think I want what you're currently doing? No. It's making me sick to my stomach. What I want from my people is for you to do good and seek justice and take care of the widow and defend the cause of the fatherless. And so we grabbed a hold of that verse, and we grabbed a hold of Isaiah, and we started Isaiah's foster care journey. The thing about foster care, it is a roller coaster with high highs and low lows and turns you never saw coming. And we had no idea really how long we would walk this journey or how it would end. But we walked it for 1,107 days. He was in state's custody. And we learned about DCS. I tell people all the time, I didn't learn about DCS in a church pew. I learned about it in the trenches. I went from knowing nothing to being in that office every Friday morning at 10 a.m., therapeutic visits with his biological mother. I learned about it standing in a lobby full of people, me trying to hand her son, him crying for me, and us both crying. No one wins in that moment. I learned about it in courtrooms and with child advocates and child and family team meetings and caseworkers. And a lot of what you've heard about the system is true. It is very flawed, and it is very fractured because they deal with flawed, fractured people. But as we walked that journey, that voice wouldn't go away. I kept hearing, and he would say things like, these are my children and they feel forgotten. These are my children and they think they've done something wrong. These are my children and they have no hope. Who's going to tell them? Who's going to tell them there's hope? Who's going to tell them they've done nothing wrong? And so in January of 17, which is 117, because God's funny. In January of 17, I finally said yes to God. And it sounded a lot like this. I don't know what you want me to do, but I will do it. And that's all he wants from us, is a yes. Because then I have had the vantage point of seeing God take over. See, what we learned in that foster care journey, 3 things that stuck with us that would not go away. Number 1, when a child is removed from their home and going through the most traumatic day of their life, and that's what removal day is. See, in 2014, I would have told you removal day is a day to celebrate. Yay, they'll be safe, and they'll get a bath, and they'll go to school all week next week, and yay, removal day. But not for that child. Not that day. Everything just fell apart. They lost mama. They lost grandmama. And they love mama. It doesn't matter. If they were allowed to bring anything, it's in a trash bag. And now they're sitting in a DCS office, in a cubicle or a conference room, and they have no promise of being placed with those siblings they're sitting there with. They have no promise of staying with the only people that truly understand what they're going through. They have no promise of their school the next day and that teacher that has been so kind. They have no promise of lunch with their friends. Their entire world just turned upside down. And that child, in that state, goes to the Department of Children's Services to sit and await placement. Sometimes this waits an hour. Sometimes it's 6 hours. Sometimes it's 12 hours. Sometimes it's 2 days. No bath, no bed. They sit and they wait. And the thing that stood out for me in 2014 and the thing that stands out to me today is inadvertently everything about that day is telling that child they've done something wrong. Leave your home, leave your stuff, and sit here till we figure out what we're going to do. Isaiah taught us very quickly he had done nothing wrong. He didn't ask to be shaken. He didn't ask to be neglected. And he deserved better than an office with no bath. The second thing that we learned very quickly is that somewhere along the way, caseworkers became the villains. Caseworkers are not villains. Caseworkers work so hard. They are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. And when that child sits in that office for 1 hour, 6 hours, 12 hours, 2 days, so does that caseworker. And when that child gets hungry, the caseworker runs out and buys them something to eat. That caseworker is trying to wash babies in a drug testing sink. That caseworker calls their family and says, I can't come home tonight. I'll be in the office with children. They are being asked to do a mountain of state's paperwork with a traumatized sibling group of 3. It can't be done. And the third thing that we realized is that we need good foster families. We need people that when they get that call, they say yes. But we've made that yes almost impossible because the call sounds like this. We have a sibling group of 3. They all have lice. They all need baths. And they have 0 possessions. Can we bring them to your home right now? How do you say yes to that? And so in January of 17, I said yes to God. And that led to another Google search on how to start a nonprofit, because if you want God to have the glory, you put someone totally ill-equipped in charge. And that led to the purchase of a domain name, Isaiah117house.com. I didn't know what a domain name was, and I still don't understand who GoDaddy is, but we did it. We formed a board, and that's when the dream took shape. What if there was a home? What if when a child is removed and going through the most traumatic day of their life, they don't go to a cubicle or a conference room or home-like environment, they go to a home with bright colors and big fluffy couches. And if you need a bath, we got a fully stocked bathroom, and not just any bathroom. We got Elmo bubble bath and bath toys and big white fluffy towels. And if you need a snack or a meal, we got a fully stocked kitchen. Better yet, let's order you. What do you want? What do you want for dinner tonight? Because I see you. What do you want? You want to make glitter slime? You want to go outside and play? You want to pick out a new backpack? You weren't allowed to bring your backpack and you have to go to school tomorrow? Well, you pick out a new one because you're not in trouble. You have done nothing wrong. This is happening to you, not because of you. And you are not alone. What if there was a home? What if that caseworker could bring that mountain of state's paperwork and we had an office space with a copier and a fax machine and everything they need to do that work? We'll have your favorite coffee and your favorite creamer. You work on the paperwork, we'll love on the child, and together we'll do this well. What if there was a home? What if that call that might still come at midnight now gets to sound like this? We have a sibling group of 3. They've all been at the Isaiah 117 house. They had lice treatments and baths. They played outside and had a snack and had dinner. They've had their baths. They all have on new pajamas, new blankets, and a new snuggly, and they're cuddled up on the couch. They have bags full of stuff, everything they need for the next 2 to 3 days. And by the way, foster parent, what do you need? Do you need a pack and play? Do you need a booster seat? What do you need? Don't go to Walmart. Don't go to Target. Let us help you, because you're not alone either. What if there was a home? And so in early 2017, we went out to Carter County, Tennessee, which is far from affluent, and said, hey, Carter County, what if there was a home? And the entire community rallied around us. The nursing home held a bake sale. The firefighters made a little boy's room, cutest firefighter room we've ever seen. The car show gave us $5,000. Every church rallied around us, and in less than a year, we had paid cash for a home. It had been completely renovated. We had a fully funded first year's budget, and every closet was full, and every cabinet was full, and we were ready to serve the children of Carter County. 152 children have walked through the red door of the Isaiah 117 house in Carter County. And I have seen with my own eyes what simple acts of kindness can do for a child on their absolute worst day. We never saw expansion. I felt like God was kind of whispering it to me along the way, and I kept assuring him that I was going to do a house. Thank you, yay, Carter County. But basically, the state of Tennessee started showing up at the red door and saying, we want one too. And so Washington County opened their doors on September 17th of this year. Greene County will open their doors tomorrow. Sullivan County will open their doors in March of 2020. And we have expansion committees in Cock, Blunt, Knox, Sevier, Coffee, Franklin, Grundy, Bradley, and Rutherford County. Someone in your community made the trip to Carter County, knocked on the door, and said, we want this for our children too. And so that's why I'm here this morning, just to make you aware of maybe a day you've never thought of or didn't know existed, to make you aware of a need that maybe you'd never heard of, and to ask you to join with us as we try to build a house right here in Rutherford County. And the last thing I'll say, my husband always asks me to finish the story, because if I don't finish the story, he says he sounds like a bad guy, and Corey Paulson is not a bad guy. Isaiah joined us in 2015. On March 30th of 2017, we got a call that he had a full sibling brother, Eli, that had been brought into state's custody at 3 weeks old. And I hung up the phone and I was crying, and Corey's like, why are you crying? I was like, well, I begged you for Sophie, our now 16-year-old, and I begged you for Mac, our now 13-year-old, and I tricked you into Isaiah. Like, I get it. You don't want any more babies. And he said, oh, we're taking that baby. And so Eli joined our family in March of 2017, and in one of the most full circle moments I'll ever experience, from watching National Adoption Day in 2014 to participating on November 17th of 2018 when they became Isaiah and Eli Paulson, and we became Paulson Party of Six. And it's very interesting to me that if you read past Isaiah 1:17 to Isaiah 1:19, God says, if you are willing and obedient, you will taste the best of the land. And those two little boys have been the best of the land. Thank you.